Hey, I'm Tommy Ellison, and this is Senior Moments. I can't tell you what I had for breakfast this morning, but I remember every detail of that time I came this close to being suspended my senior year in high school, just 3 weeks before graduation. So stick around. This is proof that some things from a misspent youth just don't fade away. Let's go. Well, hey guys, Tommy Ellison here. It's live at 5, and this is Senior Moments, evidence of a misspent youth. And tonight's episode is called Put Me In, Coach. I always love that song. So let's get started. I was watching a high school football game Friday night, and you may be asking me, why was I at a high school football game? Well, it was Homewood versus Briarwood. And, well, why was I there? It was because my grandson, starting defensive end for Homewood, he's a junior. And, of course, this was their second game. And they were playing Briarwood at Briarwood. And I've been watching him since middle school. You know, he's really come a long way. He's developed into a real player. The guy's 6'4", probably weighs about 195. He's a junior at Homewood. And, you know, watching him play and watching the flavor of the game and all that was going on Friday night just kind of sent me back in my mind, I would guess about 50 years ago. I guess I could say a half century, but that really, really sounds old. Anyway, it spoke to me because, you see, I was a parochial school kid, through the 8th grade, and I was never really involved in what, one would call organized sports. And you know what I mean, teams and sort of stuff, that kind of thing. And I guess the closest thing to it was while I was in grammar school there at St. Anthony's in Inslee, we had a basketball team. And, oddly enough, our coach was a big, I shouldn't say big, she was a Rubenesque nun. Sister Mary Godfrey was her name. She was born in Boston and raised there and was part of the order of nuns that came out of Boston. And she was a huge Celtics fan, and of course, she was also a big Red Sox fan. I remember while we were in one of her classes, I think it was either 5th or 6th grade, because we had her 2 years back to back. The Red Sox were in the World Series, and we actually watched television on a little black and white television that afternoon. Anyway, she coached our basketball team, and it was kind of, I guess, nostalgic for me to look back, because she always wore under her nun's habit a pair of black and white Chuck Taylor high top tennis shoes, which really and truly, if we think about it, just about everybody that was anybody in basketball was wearing that same set of shoes from the old Chuck Taylor Converse company. So, and we played and practiced on a basketball court on the asphalt parking lot across the street from the church and the school. And, probably why my green school uniform pants were always worn out at the knees, because when you play on asphalt, you fall and scrape up your knees, but you also tear up the knees of your pants. So anyway, those knees always worn out before anything else managed to decay. And the only time we ever played a game inside of a real indoor basketball court was at St. Aloysius School in Bessemer. Now, this is not the current St. Aloysius campus. This was the old campus in downtown Bessemer. And they had a real gymnasium with a maple floor, and they even had glass backboards, which we found kind of fascinating since ours were metal outdoors. And they even had a net on their goals, which was, kind of unique to us. And I don't remember there being a net on our hoops, there may have been, but I think they were changed. So anyway, neither are germane to this story, but Catholic schools, now they did have what was known as a CYO, Catholic Youth Organization football program, but there was a maximum weight limit. And that really never made sense to me, because when I watched pro football on television or college football, it appeared that bigger was better, but well, not so much if you're a Catholic, I guess, because I believe the largest weight class was 105 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And then there was a smaller weight class for the smaller kids. I think it was less than 90 pounds or so. But when I was in the 6th grade, I was weighing probably close to 200 pounds. And I'm just guessing, but I was a big kid. And I was, of course, deemed ineligible to play in the CYO football league and be a part of that team experience. So that's the backstory that leads me to talk about my first day in junior high school, the 9th grade. See, I had graduated from St. Anthony's and had matriculated to Fairfield Junior High to begin my higher education there in the 9th grade. And so the first day of school, I walked into school and I was approached, or, maybe ambush was a better word, but our assistant football coach, his name was Milford Espy. He came up to me in the hall. He was a kind of a short, rotund fellow with a red hair who probably weighed in closer to 280 or 290 if I had to guess. But I think he played football in high school there at Fairfield. I'm almost positive he did. But when he went to college, he was actually remembered for being the first mascot, Big Al, at the University of Alabama. I mean, you can look it up on Wikipedia or some other source to confirm that story, but Mr. Espy was the original Big Al. And he told a newspaper reporter once, he said that the only reason he liked being the mascot was you got to travel to the away games with the cheerleaders. So I guess he kind of saw himself as a ladies' man. Well, anyway, on that first day of school, I was approached by Coach Espy in the hall, and he looked at me and he said, "You're playing football." Now, little did I know that the football team had already been practicing for several weeks during the summer. But being this was my first year in a public school, I didn't know the rules and regulations for participating in team sports. I'm not even sure if I knew they had a football team. But to be honest with you, I hadn't even thought about being a participant in team sports. But on that given day, anything can happen. I guess I was drafted and was told to report to the football dressing room that afternoon. Well, I'm sure I must have been the laughing stock of the team. These guys had played pee-wee football all through the years, and I'd only played touch football in my grandmother's yard with my cousins, which was not really a rules-based sport to begin with, playing in the empty lot next to my grandmother's house. But I was given a pair of shoulder pads, which I had no clue how to put on or lace up. I was given a shirt to wear over the shoulder pads. I was also given a pair of extremely large, dingy white football pants that I had to cinch up in the waist to get them to stay up, and a pair of hip pads. Now, hip pads were pretty common back then, and the strategic part of a hip pad was actually the pad that covered up the crack of your butt and protected your spine from impact. But not knowing exactly how they were supposed to be worn, and when I got to the locker room, most of the guys were partially dressed, and well, it made perfect sense to me that the extended pad that would be better served on the opposite side of my anatomy, just, protecting the family jewels, as it were. And so when I put them on in the locker room, everybody began to laugh. And fortunately for me, one kind soul, a guy named Mike Howell, showed me exactly how they were to be worn. And Mike, he was a pretty good guy, and I always liked Mike, but following the ninth grade, his dad put him in military school down at Marion Institute, and I never saw him again. And I'm not sure what his crime was to be banished to military school, but it must have been pretty serious, or his dad was trying to, maybe up his respect for authority, I guess. But anyway, as the first game approached and the team was issued their game day uniforms, well, almost everyone on the team was issued game day uniforms. I mean, I was given an orange jersey, which had the white numerals, and I don't really remember what number I wore, but I do remember that it was a pretty cool jersey, and the first one I'd ever seen, like, close up, and, much less having worn one before. And as I said, the numerals were white, trimmed in orange. So far, so good. Our school colors were orange and white. And while the high school colors were purple and gold, ours were orange and white there at the junior high, back when they had junior high schools. More on that later, though, about the purple and gold. And as I said, the team colors were orange and white, and these orange jerseys, white pants, that was what the team was wearing. That's what they were decked out, except there was one problem. My coaches discovered there was no really large white game day pants that matched the rest of the teams. So you remember me saying that about the high school colors being purple and gold. Well, our coaches went up to the high school and dug around in the storage rooms and found a pair of extra large football pants that I could wear. And, well, unfortunately, they were not white. They were what I would call a gold lamé, a shiny, bright gold material in color. And I think they were left over from a former high school player that came through the program up there 6 or 7 years earlier. Oh, and there was one other little detail about, what a rookie doesn't really know or think about before entering into the world of organized sports. That's me. I was the rookie, and that was game day socks. I mean, everyone on the team had white athletic socks, and I never thought to ask my parents to get me a pair. So in the first game, I wore my red go-to-mass Sunday socks. Now, our helmets were white, if I recall. And you know what? I'm extremely proud to say that there were no surviving photographs of me coming out of that locker room in my uniform that day. But thanks to artificial intelligence, I was able to recreate that proud day in my life, my first game in uniform. White helmet, orange jersey, white numerals, gold, shiny gold pants, and red socks. Artificial intelligence actually made them a little higher up on my leg than they actually were. But, and then the black cleats. It must have been quite a sight, even though I didn't really think much about it. I wasn't really very good in football because I had no real understanding of the game or its intricacies, the plays, the defenses, the drills, the muscle memory, the stuff that, most of the kids had known and practiced for years in those junior leagues and lower weight class, team sports that they had played in the park leagues and that sort of thing. And I had no real, you know, well, let me put it this way. I really have no recollection of actually playing in the back and forth scrimmages that football is. However, my coaches did find some merit in my size. And on some occasions, I was called on to run the ball on extra points. Now, apparently, we didn't have a decent, place kicker. And you have to remember, this was way back before soccer surge took place in the U.S. and with school sports. So there weren't all these soccer players running around that could kick the ball. And so our solution was really very simple. When the ball is hiked, just Tommy, run forward, grab it from the quarterback, and hit that line and hit it hard and try to make 2 yards for an extra point. I mean, even the Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles, have the same play in their playbook too. It's called the brotherly shove. It's kind of like the quarterback sneak, but with a little more mass and motion. And I'd like to tell you, I made many extra points and wound up in the record books, but I'm clueless where those statistics would even be. I'm sure they're underwhelming because I don't really remember running the ball that many times. Maybe we just didn't score a lot that season. I don't know. I don't remember. I think I've blocked it out of my memory. I certainly have tried to block out those gold lamé pants and the red socks. Well, either way, that's how I got introduced to organized sports. And either way, I survived. And by the time I reached my junior year in high school, I had developed more skills and had slimmed down a bit to be able to play the game more proficiently. And I have to honestly say that my success playing football, often high school and the next level in college, is traceable to great coaching and guidance that I learned in high school. Men like Coach Harold Red Lutz, Coach Bob Cannon, Coach Jimmy Fuller. And these are the men that led the way for me to become a better player and even to get an education at a quality university. Now, my parents were proud, especially my mom. She was my biggest fan. She attended every game that I played in, not only in high school, but in college as well. Let me rephrase that. She not only attended every game I played in, she attended every game that I dressed for and was on the bench or on the field, either one. She came to every one, all of them. She traveled to all of the away games, regardless of their location. And looking back, I can remember that even though the stadium would be full of rowdy fans screaming and hollering and yelling, I could still hear her voice yelling at me to play harder and to make my block. My dad always thought I should be in the band. But that's another story that I'll save for later in another episode of Senior Moments. Oh, and by the way, Homewood won 27-0, a shutout. And my grandson, well, he had a great night and was actually named MVP on the defensive team by the Homewood sports announcers. So, nevertheless, I wanted to thanks for watching and be sure and tell your friends about my podcast, okay? And don't forget to listen closely to what this handsome guy following me will tell you about how you can help my channel grow a bit. I hope you have a great Sunday and a super Labor Day weekend. Let me pop this one up here. My sister, I think, had a comment here. What'd she say? I can attest that Mom went to every single game. Yeah, my sister had to ride with her. She was 10 years younger than me. So, yeah, I'm sure that is the case, that Anna made every one of those games as well, and she can vouch for my story. Anyway, I hope you have a great Sunday, a super Labor Day weekend, and we'll see you next time. Well, hey, thanks for spending a few minutes with me on Senior Moments. If you enjoyed the ride, be sure and tap that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one. I'll be back soon with more stories from a misspent youth, and maybe some of yours too.